but the $26 million on social media, most of that money doesn't go to ABC, and the business is still bad, particularly if you're offending half the country, the ones that voted for the guy he doesn't like. Good luck late night.
Ooh, the massive decline of Jim Kimmel took less than 24 hours. No wonder. It took almost 48 hours for Wednesday night's ratings to be released. Did you guys notice how fast ratings were released for Jim's immaculate return on Tuesday night? It amazes me how fast ratings can be calculated when it fits the woke media narrative. It has been so long since deacons at Woke United Methodist have organized a celebratory butt bongo festival, mainly because there's been no reason to celebrate because the woke fungus is on life support. When Jim Kimmel drew 6.2 million viewers for his immaculate return, the media was eager to celebrate. Celebrate the butt bongo! But as expected, once the curiosity was satisfied, once the controversy subsided, Jim Kimmel's ratings are well on their way back to the pooper. You know, Jim Kimmel kind of reminds me of the WNBA dump. For decades, both Jim Kimmel and the WNBA have been recognized for their unmatched, huge, embarrassing failure. They're both suffering through severe cases of stage 4 OMB. Orange Man bad! They both struggle to draw flies to a fresh turd. Hell, the only difference between Jim Kimmel and the WNBA can actually be funny. It's comedic watching WNBA players climb the ladder for a jump ball and still not being able to reach it. After decades of huge embarrassing failure, both Jim Kimmel and the WNBA, they were given a unique opportunity to succeed. Now, in the case of the WNBA, they stumbled upon a once-in-a-lifetime superstar. Well, Casey, don't you mean a once-in-a-generation superstar? No. The WNBA has been around for multiple generations, and outside of looking up at nighttime, the WNBA has never seen a star, much less a mainstream superstar. In the case of Jim Kimmel, he lucked into a controversy that had the potential to save his dying career. This week, for the first time ever, the eyes of America were on Jim Kimmel. This was his chance to attract a mainstream audience. This was his chance to capture the attention of normal people. This was his opportunity to prove that he was no longer obsessed with another man with a bad spray tan. This was Jim Kimmel's chance to stand up to the real bullies. And I'm not talking about the Trumper who Jim and his collection of woodwinds mistakenly claim as a bully. Hey guys, it's me, Jimmy! Don Trump bullied me in high school because I played the clarinet and the flute! Maybe Don was just trying to help you. Anyway, this was Jim's chance to stand up to the real bullies. This was his chance to get over his fear and defy the deacons at Woke United Methodist. But just like the WNBA did with Caitlin Clark, Jim Kimmel sat down and pissed on his opportunity. And as expected, normal people noticed and immediately got Jim off their TV. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel in the description below. Today on the second channel, going to be talking about the Las Vegas Anonymous Faces disrespecting the national anthem last night. One of my viewers was at the game last night between the Anonymous Faces and the Indiana Felines. National anthem was playing. Everyone in the arena was on their feet. But the Las Vegas Anonymous Faces were like some WNBA ratings. They were mysteriously missing. He sent me the footage that he recorded from the arena. I'll share it with you guys, so click the link in the description below, subscribe to the second channel. Yesterday, we talked about the donut diva Brian Stelter taking a break from glazing the stiff cinnamon stick so he could polish Jim Kimmel's toxic turds. The donut diva seems to be desperate for what he calls Jim's masculine attention. So he wrote an article boasting about Jim Kimmel's success on YouTube. This is amazing! Jim is breaking the internet! Brian Stelter was overly excited about Jim's performance on YouTube. The only time I see Brian Stelter this excited is when the Hot Now sign is lit at Krispy Kreme. But I noticed a glaring omission in the Donut Diva's article. He made sure to highlight Jim's numbers on YouTube, but he failed to update the article once ratings were finally released for Wednesday night's episode. I wonder why. Brian Stelter and CNN, they're not the only ones failing to report ratings from Wednesday night. Seems like the entirety of the mainstream media is no longer interested in celebrating Jim's ratings. 6.2 million people tuned in Tuesday night for the immaculate return of Jim Kimmel. 24 hours later, Jim had that number down to a cool 2.4 million, a decline of 70% in 24 hours. But KC, that's still well above his average of 1.7 million, plus Sinclair and Nexstar have finally agreed to reinstate his primetime dump. Next week, Jim will be back on all ABC affiliates. This is going to be incredible! Hold the celebration, Sparky. Tuesday night was the pinnacle of Jim Kimmel's career. Tuesday night was as good as it's going to get. Going forward, it is going to get much, much worse. Tuesday's monologue, that was the most important monologue of Jim Kimmel's career. This was his chance to appeal to normal people. This was his chance to apologize for blatantly lying about Tyler Robinson being a Trump supporter. This was Jim Kimmel's chance to go to a place that he's never gone before. It was his opportunity to transform this late night dump into a late night comedy show. I know that sounds impossible with the current trio of huge embarrassing failures hosting these late night dumps, but Jim Fallon's found a way to do it. Jim Fallon has found a way to be politically balanced. Unfortunately for his brother and Jim, instead of apologizing, instead of showing that he could change, Jim Kimmel continued to be defiant, and he continued his decade-long obsession with Donald Trump. For 3 consecutive nights, ABC presented a dude in his 50s obsessing over a dude in his late 70s. Believe it or not, Jim Kimmel used to at least try to be comedic. A couple of weeks ago, I had someone in the media send me an old clip of Jim Kimmel. Now, this clip, it's from The Man Show, which aired on Comedy Central from 1999 to 2004. Now, I know the kids are probably wondering, why was Jim Kimmel on The Man Show? I know it seems counterintuitive, but believe it or not, Jim Kimmel used to act like a man. Watch for yourself.
Watching you on like the ESPN shows or anything, this right there where you've been, there's the point where I start masturbating. You see that? And it's really funny.
That was brutal.
If you filmed that scene today and Jim Kimmel was talking about spanking the wanker, instead of a beautiful woman being on the other side of the pool table, there would be a life-size poster of Don Trump. How could you squander this opportunity? Jim Kimmel's job is literally at risk. This dude is well on his way to joining his bestie Stevie Colbert in the unemployment line. Now, unlike Stevie, who was simply fired by CBS because he sucked, Jim Kimmel was given a gift. He had the full attention of the mainstream. The entire country was paying attention. And instead of appealing to everyone, Jim Kimmel continued to appease a woke audience that's rapidly dwindling. Why? Like I've told you guys before, I think Jim Kimmel is terrified. I think most Democrats, both in the media and in Washington, I think most Democrats are terrified of the monster they created. Think about it. Charlie Kirk was murdered because he was preaching about Jesus. Charlie Kirk was murdered because he knew men didn't belong in the women's bathroom. If you attend a Turning Point USA event or any event hosted by a conservative, a normal person, they have more security than the airport. The other day, Tim Pool was talking about everything he's got to go through just to be able to travel. He can't share his itinerary with his staff, even though we probably trust him, because he can't risk his itinerary getting leaked to the outcast. There are 4 security guards who pick him up from his house. He has more security waiting for him at the airport. Once the plane lands, they have additional security at his destination airport. At the hotel, he has a minimum of 2 security guards outside his door 24 hours a day. Obviously, traveling to and from whatever event he's going to, security with him at all times. For Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Megyn Kelly, for them to make a simple weekend trip probably cost them $10, $15, maybe $20,000 for security alone, not to mention the hassle. You think Jim Kimmel wants to go through that? You think Jim Kimmel wants to deal with the inconvenience and the never-ending fear, the stress? I don't think Jim Kimmel is a bad guy. I think he's got an unhealthy obsession with the Trumper, but I don't think Jim Kimmel wants Republicans to lose their life. But he's afraid to speak against it. He's afraid to apologize for lying about Tyler Robinson because he's afraid of the woke fungus turning against him. Because Jim Kimmel knows that's how it always happens. Remember the intro I sometimes do, the woke turning on the woke? That is not hyperbole. It's real. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.